So, a warm welcome this morning to Armagh-based author Laura McLoughlin, who has just released her first book, The Many Ghosts of Donahue Burns. And as I gather, Laura, this is a bit of a mystery book. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, it would be kind of like a spooky haunted hotel mystery. It mostly follows Mia Ann Moran, and she works in Balnadrum Hotel, and its owner has recently died. So, following this, Mia is really heartbroken about it. She feels like all the magic and wonder that Donahue Burns, the owner, brought to the hotel is going to leave with him. And worse still is that his son has returned from a long self imposed exile to claim his inheritance and try to sell on the hotel to the highest bidder and most likely shut it down. So, Balladrum Hotel has long been rumored to be haunted. So, whenever these rumors turn out to be a little bit more true than anticipated, her and Cormac enter into this uneasy agreement that he will keep the hotel open and sell it on in its entirety, and in exchange, she will help him with these unruly guests, which are, of course, its ghosts. So it's, yeah, a spooky haunted hotel mystery. It's very much set during the autumn season, and yeah, it was a lot of fun to write.
Sounds fun. It sounds like it would be fun to read. And I'm just thinking, we should have probably done this last week when it was Halloween, and it would have been very much,
No.
yeah, a theme. But I love, I mean, it's a personal favourite of mine. I love anything spooky, anything sort of
Hmm.
about the occult in general. And
Fair.
is it something that you've always found interesting? Have you always sort of gravitated to that type of
I
story?
love spooky stuff in general. I actually just love Halloween in general. So very much the book is set like in the beginnings of autumn and it kind of like reaches its climax, I suppose, on Halloween night. And I've always been very fond of Halloween. I think it's like my mum always preferred Halloween to Christmas and things, so I think it was always just a much more like warm holiday in my memory, and we would have went trick-or-treating and like dressed up in would you have dressed up in like old bin bags to like
Yes,
as a witch and stuff? So
paper,
yeah.
paper mache masks made from newspaper and glue that we
Yeah.
painted. But
Just
now there's a
not
lot of
not
money spent now, isn't there?
yeah, I think so. It's a lot more it feels a lot more like American or something, I suppose, all like the stuff
Commercialized.
coming into TK Maxx and things. So I
Yeah.
love it because I love having like cute decorations and stuff. But yeah, I've always really been into Halloween and I have like a bunch of movies and stuff I love watching every year. Anything just kind of spooky in the sense of like I think sometimes like big fantasy novels and fantasy movies feel almost too distant. Whereas like I feel like those spooky stories feel a little bit more intimate.
Yeah.
I feel like they're often kind of like looking at something a little bit smaller and mysterious and things like that.
There's
But
a
not,
familiarity sort of with it, isn't there?
yeah, the
Familiar.
idea of like there can be like a mysterious door and what's behind it and that kind of like I suppose like as much as it is spooky and has like scary sort of elements to it, I think there's just that very much like childlike element to it.
Well, I was going to
Um,
say, I get the vibe that whilst it's haunted and it's spooky, the
mhm.
ghosts don't seem to be sinister. Like
No.
they're more like, are they tameable? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cormac offers Mia this job, and he describes it as concierge to the dead, and she finds this a very sort of romantic notion. But yeah, they're tameable in that sense, so she's able to speak to them and talk to them, and um, they can be confused, and I think that's where they have any sort of sense of malice about them. It's usually because they're a little bit confused and they want to go drifting off into other parts of the hotel. And it takes sort of Mia reminding them of who they are, or they need to come back to the ballroom where they kind of keep all these ghosts. Um, yeah, so they're not too sinister. My friend, actually, she calls them wholesome ghosts. Wholesome.
That's the vibe
So,
that I get. And I was
yeah.
going to say, is there any like underlying teachings that you could take away from the book, or is it just very much an enjoyable story?
I wrote it to enjoy the autumn season, obviously. So I think that I'm hoping there's like a sense of like nice cozy vibes and just like a good time, a good mystery. But I wrote it very much with this question, I suppose, of like, how do we remember people?
Yeah.
So specifically, whenever you're looking at ghosts, obviously there's so much memory there with them. What do they remember about themselves? What do they think is important about themselves? But also, what do other people remember about them? So you have that with the ghosts, but you also have that with Donahue Burns himself.
Hmm.
So Mia Ann was very close to the hotel's owner, Donahue Burns, and remembers him really, really fondly. But she comes into contact with Cormac, his son, and he remembers him very differently. So I think there is very much a question throughout the novel of what is it to remember someone accurately, and is it possible to remember someone accurately, or is it just enough that you loved them and they loved you? So yeah, I think there's a bit of a question there. I don't think there's any particularly like moral sort of things, a moral answer there. But yeah, that was something I really wanted to explore in that book, specifically with things like ghosts and people who've died and things.
Yeah. No, I love that. And something else I was going to ask you just when you were talking about the characters, and I was thinking about the hotel as well. Is it Balnadrum Hotel?
Drum Hotel, yeah.
Is there inspirations that you've taken from local people or family members or local places for the novel, or is it totally fictionalized?
For the hotel itself, sorry.
Yes.
The hotel. Do you know people will ask, is Balnadrum Hotel like a real hotel? Because whenever I tell people Balnadrum itself, I see very much as Armagh,
Yeah.
like the town. I did talk about like Georgian style houses and things like that, and I'm like there's a library and a courthouse and blah blah blah. So I've occasionally been asked like, is it like Armagh Hotel? And I was like, no, it's not quite that modern. It's not quite like that. So Balnadrum Hotel unfortunately doesn't really have any specific inspiration, to be honest. I think it's very much modeled on sort of old Irish country hotels in general. I think like Cork House and things like that. So really like its interior, it would be very much what I imagine, but there's nothing in particular. The inspiration specifically for this novel mostly came from a song.
Okay.
I was like back at university and I was like listening to my little iPod Touch, which is horrifically out of date now. But yeah, there was a song called Wildfire by John Mayer, and
Yeah.
it has this line in it which is, we can dance with the dead, you can rest your head on my shoulder if you want to get older with me. And I'm like such a doodler, like all through like school and stuff, I would be like sort of drawing on notebooks and things. So I had been making notes at the time when I was listening to this song, and that line of "We can dance with the dead" really, I just had a really immediate picture from it. I think it is a really lovely line. I think it is a very like visual image.
Yeah.
So I had this little picture of like of a girl in a dress dancing with this very well dressed skeleton. So yeah, and then I think just that was interesting enough to me, and then you think to yourself, well, where is it? And where does one dance with a skeleton but a ballroom, and where is a ballroom but a hotel? And it kind of just snowballed from there. So yeah, I don't think there was any particular place in mind
Yeah.
for the hotel so much as that idea of dancing with the dead. I really liked.
And you sound, just listening to you talk, very creative, a little bit romantic, and I get that. I am too. I romanticize everything, everything. But is that just, has there always been like a hunger to write or to create something special?
Think so. I love that you say special actually. Like that's such a thing of
No, I just
like
think that you have like a bit of an emotion. Well, of course you do. It's your book. You have an
But
emotional. I sense
yeah,
that.
I like that I like the idea that like the ballroom and Mia and that story is like special. It's like it makes her special even though it's like a small thing for her. It's like a small adventure effectively. It's not like a big world-saving adventure or anything. But yeah, I think I've always wanted to write. I've always been writing. I very much wrote like little short stories and stuff whenever I was little. Um, and I think I was always kind of writing stuff that I was already reading, so it was very like fairy tale-ish kind of stuff whenever I was much smaller. And then I got a little bit older and would have been reading like Meg Cabot or like the Princess Diaries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then was writing more tweeny sort of things and started trying to write a novel then in high school. So I've always very much wanted to do that.
Hmm.
I wasn't sure if I was always going to get to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing whenever you want to go into the arts in general. It's this question of like, will I actually get the chance to do this? My mum would have always encouraged me to be a little bit more sensible with my career goals. And that was, it sounds like a bit of a bummer, but it was very grounding sort of
Yeah.
advice. And it meant I ended up doing like three sciences and add maths at GCSE to
Okay.
try and look at doing a
Yeah.
very nice, sensible STEM career, and it just never worked out
Yeah.
because
Life.
I think at my heart I must just be a more creative person than a little bit more analytical. I'm very envious of people who do have a little bit more of like an analytical, like technical mind. My husband would be very much like that, but not for me. Apparently, it's always been a little bit more imagination first.
Such a difference, and I think people see writing as all it's one, and it's
Mm,
really not when you move from creative writing to something more
yeah.
fact based. To come
Yeah.
back again to creative is very difficult, and like how did you cope with it? Did you just find your fate, or did you have to
Coming
like
back to it, I
process?
think I was always writing little bits whenever I was at university. I wasn't getting to write my novel. I was doing, short stories for my university coursework, and I was doing little poetry things on the side by myself, but I wasn't getting to do the novel anymore. So, yeah, getting back into the novel was a lot more like daunting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like you're so right though, like switching from like very functional writing
Hmm.
into like getting to do something even just longer formed, like the articles I was writing and by the end of it just sort of managing are, maybe 1,000 words at the very, very maximum, whereas like a novel is the first utterance of The Many Ghosts. The first time I pitched an agent with it, it was like 90,000 words.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a much longer thing. So yeah, I ended up having to leave that anyway, just to kind of get a bit of a work-life balance. And now I am with this lovely agency. It was originally based in Belfast.
Mhm.
And after COVID, we went fully remote, and it is a really good combo of I do all marketing. So I do like email marketing and build meta ads and bits and pieces like that. But I'm entirely at home, and it just means like this morning I was able to get up at like 7 a.m., work for a couple of hours on the book, and then like start in at 9 a.m., which is lovely. So yeah,
Amazing.
it's much more like flexible. It's much more yeah, it's not the same as the website, which might have been like start at 8 a.m. You're still like looking at bits and pieces at half 8 at night, blah blah blah. So yeah, it's a really good place.
I was gonna say to you there, I feel like we need a second book called The Many Hats of Laura McLoughlin. Like,
It's all been
just
it's all been digital, to be fair. I think I
yeah.
only ever got this particular job I'm in now because of the work I actually did at that website. I don't think it was anything to do with my degree or anything like that. I think it was little bits of marketing that I had picked up there. But
And
yeah.
doors open, don't they just like kind of naturally? If you want something, the doors will open. You
Yes.
have to make sure you go through them, and
And
it's
isn't that
brilliant.
kind of stressful when you're not really sure what doors you're looking for? I remember being so very stressed during my A levels of what am I going to do? I don't know what opportunities are actually available to me. And whenever you're looking online at jobs you could do in Northern Ireland, sometimes you're like, I don't want to do these, or I don't know if I'm ever going to get a job like this.
Hmm.
But things just happen. It's weird.
Yeah, I think I know people talk about manifesting things all the time, but I think
Mm,
there is a part of that that's very true. You know, if you want something and you work towards it, it's yours. You know, and you can kind of see that
yeah.
you've done that. You've always had the book in the periphery, and the book's here. You
Hmm.
know, and it is your
I do.
first. Am I right in saying that it is your first novel?
This is my first published novel. It's probably my third written novel. But I think that makes sense. I don't think that's particularly uncommon for authors.
Hmm.
You're not, I think anything actually you do, you're not, the thing you do for the first time is not going to be your best work. So it makes do you know, like there was the book that I wrote before this, and I got turned down for it from different agents, and I just remember being really like cut up about it, like, oh, it's never going to happen. And you know, in retrospect, I think to myself, you know, that's not the book I would have wanted to debut with. It's not what I wanted to go forward with. It's not even probably, it was very much a YA fantasy, and it's not even a genre I write anymore, if you know what I mean. I don't even read it very much anymore. It would have been very much what I was reading at the time, but yeah, it's weird. It works out. Things work out.
Absolutely. And Laura, just as a sort of final question, what would you say to anybody if there were sort of fledgling writers out there that were thinking, because a book is scary for most
It's very
people.
long.
Where to start? What do you do? Have you any sort of pearls of wisdom?
For getting started with a novel, or kind
Yeah.
of getting published, or a
Just
little bit of
getting started.
everything?
Well, yeah, whatever you think.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh man, I like the most boring advice, which I think is also the most helpful, is just like start writing. And it's so rubbish because you're like, oh, that's not actually very exciting. Um, but writing, I have written through, you know, every sort of like moment of even waiting for me. Like whenever I was pitching The Many Ghosts of Donahue Burns to my agent for the very first time, I was already writing something else to kind of like keep moving on with,
Hmm.
you know, like just keep building on that craft instead of like sitting waiting. Whenever I got my agent, then, you know, we were working on edits and stuff. And whenever the edits were done and we were out in submission, like I was still just like, I just had to keep writing to write, like, right through it.
Hmm.
So I think there's a lot to be said of just like, just right. Like, you can never pitch or submit a book that's not finished, and that's so rubbish. Because I think the writing is the hard bit. There's a very well-known phrase, and I don't even know who wrote it, but it's I don't like writing. I like having written. And I very much identify with that. So, yeah, unfortunately, the writing, and then I think just researching, I think is so important as well. That's kind of like the other prong. Whenever I was pitching this novel to agents, there was very much a stage of like researching who would be a good fit for this novel, who represents novels that I already like, that would feel similar to this. My own agent, like, she had listed like The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern as one of like her favorite novels, and I was like, okay, well, there's like magic in that, and I love that book too, and I want you to love what I loved about that I hope I put into this novel. So yeah, research and researching specifically the agents, I suppose. I know like whenever you go into pitching, uh, it's really recommended to kind of like tailor each of your emails and stuff to specific agents. To say things like, I saw that you really like this book, and I hope you like that element of that in my book, or I see that you're representing that, and I think my book looks like this. So, yeah, it's a lot of research. Even the submissions process of like, a lot of agents will say things like, will want you to, or agencies will want you to submit something like 3 chapters, but it's going to be double spaced and should be Times New Roman, and see if it as a Microsoft Word document, not as a Pages document, and things like that. So that all just takes a little bit of time, but yeah, that kind of research I think can make a big difference in the sense of I don't think any agent is going to like turn you away desperately if you haven't double spaced or anything, but just having the correct person at the correct time, and them being interested in that sort of novel. You know, so much of like getting published is timing. Like I would never say like you never want to say like, oh, it's entirely luck, because you can't like
Yeah.
belittle your work like that, but at the same time there is so much timing to it, there's so much luck to it. It's being in front of the right person, and yeah, I think a bit of research can get you in front of the right person. Whether it's the right time or not's another thing, but that's an important thing, I think.
That's good advice. All very, very good advice. And The Many Ghosts of Donahue Burns is in Waterstones. Am I right in saying that?
It's on Waterstones.
And
It's
where else
on
can you find it?
Amazon. I think it's in foils, but we don't have foils here. I think it's on WH Smith as well. I don't know. I have my
It's
husband's
everywhere, says Laura.
my my husband's great aunt is from Dublin, and she showed him a picture of the book she got, and apparently it was in Eason's, but I didn't know it was in Eason's. But yeah, I think for Northern Ireland, it's easiest
So
to get it in
easy.
Waterstones. Or I'm going to Bridge Books tonight in Dromore. Apparently, I think they have it as well. So yeah, Waterstones, Amazon, Bridge Books, all good.
All bookshops, digital and physical. That's brilliant, Laura. Thank you so much for speaking to me today. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it, and it sounds like an excellent book. So
Great.
you'll have another reader very shortly.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so, so much. I hope you like it.